I thought I knew everything about Linda. 7 years together, 5 of them married. We had this little two-story house near Forest Park in Portland, the kind with a front porch where we would drink coffee on Sunday mornings. She planted tomatoes in the backyard every spring. I was a software engineer, she worked in marketing. We were building something real, or so I believed. We talked about kids. We talked about growing old together. I thought I knew her better than anyone, until that Tuesday night in September, when everything I believed turned to dust. Before I take you through what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your location in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how this story unfolds. Because what I'm about to tell you changed everything I thought I knew about trust. We met back in 2016 at a tech company in Seattle. She was presenting marketing strategies to our development team, and I could not take my eyes off her. Linda had this energy that filled a room. She laughed easily, spoke confidently, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered when she talked to you. After that meeting, I found excuses to walk past her desk. 3 weeks later, I finally got the courage to ask her to coffee. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends together. By 2017, we were inseparable. We got married in June of 2018. Small ceremony, just family, and close friends in a vineyard outside Portland. I had just accepted a position at a software firm there, and Linda found a marketing role at a growing startup. We bought our house that fall. It needed work, but we did not mind. We spent weekends painting walls, choosing furniture, arguing playfully about whether the couch should go against the north wall or the east. Those were good days, simple days. I came home every evening to the smell of whatever she was cooking. We would sit at our little kitchen table, talking about our days, making plans for the future. She wanted to wait a few years before having children. Focus on our careers first, she said. Build a solid foundation. I agreed. We had time. We were only in our late 20s. There was no rush. I loved our life exactly as it was. Every morning, I woke up next to her and felt grateful. I would watch her sleep, sometimes her hair spread across the pillow, and think about how lucky I was. She was beautiful, ambitious kind. She remembered the little things, my favorite coffee blend, the way I liked my eggs. She would leave notes in my lunch bag with terrible jokes that made me smile during boring meetings. Looking back now, I wonder when things started to change. Or maybe they were always different and I just refused to see it. Maybe I was so caught up in the idea of us that I missed the reality. But I do not think so. I think we were happy. I think it was real. And then something shifted. It started small. Around June of 2022, Linda began working later. She said they were launching a major campaign, that her team was understaffed. I understood. I had been through crunch times at my own job. So when she texted saying she would be home late, I did not question it. When she came home exhausted and went straight to bed, I brought her water and let her rest. I was being supportive. That is what you do when you love someone. But then there were other things. Her phone was always face down now. Always. On the table, on the counter, on the nightstand. And she started taking it everywhere. Even to the bathroom, even when she showered. If I walked into a room while she was texting, she would turn the screen away or quickly close whatever she was looking at. When I asked about it casually, she would say it was work stuff. Boring marketing reports, client complaints, nothing I would find interesting. Late-night texts became normal. Her phone would buzz at 11 at midnight, sometimes at 1 in the morning. She would check it immediately, her face lit by the screen glow, and I would see her smile. Not the tired smile of someone dealing with work problems, a different smile, soft, private. When I asked who was texting so late, she said it was colleagues in different time zones. The company was expanding internationally. People in Singapore, in London. It made sense. I believed her. There was this one night in early August. We were watching a movie, some comedy she had picked. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up, read the message, and started giggling. Not a polite chuckle, but real laughter. The kind you cannot fake. I asked what was funny, and her face changed instantly. The smile vanished. She said it was just a meme from a coworker, nothing special, and put the phone away. But her hands were shaking slightly. I noticed. I did not say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then came the inconsistencies. She told me about a late meeting on a Thursday, said it ran until 9, but when I mentioned it the next day, asking how it went, she looked confused. She said the meeting was on Wednesday, not Thursday. Small thing, people forget, but it stuck with me. Then there was the time she said she had lunch with a client. Downtown, came home with a shopping bag from a store in the opposite direction. When I pointed it out, she got defensive. Said she went shopping after that. I was keeping track of her movements now. We had our first real fight that night. She accused me of not trusting her. I apologized. I felt guilty. Maybe I was being controlling. Maybe work stress was making me paranoid. But deep down, something was wrong. I could feel it in my gut. The way she stopped reaching for my hand when we walked. The way she turned away from me in bed. The way our conversations became shallow, surface level, like we were roommates instead of partners. I loved her. I did not want to believe what my instincts were screaming, so I pushed it down. I worked longer hours. I tried to be a better husband. I planned date nights. I brought home flowers. Nothing changed. Late August, she told me she had a business trip to Denver. 3 days, she said. Big conference, important clients. She seemed excited about it, busier than usual with preparations. I helped her pack. I kissed her goodbye the night before she left, told her I would miss her. She smiled and said she would miss me too, but her eyes did not quite meet mine. The next morning I was doing laundry. I grabbed some papers off her desk to clear space for folding clothes, and that is when I saw it. A printed email confirmation, hotel reservation, but not in Denver, in Portland. The same boutique hotel downtown in the Pearl District, same dates as her supposed trip. My heart stopped. I read it 3 times, hoping I misunderstood. But there was no mistake. She had booked a hotel room here in our own city for the exact nights she claimed to be in Denver. I sat on the edge of our bed, the paper shaking in my hands. Every excuse I had made for her over the past months collapsed. This was not paranoia. This was not stress. This was real. She was lying. And if she was lying about this, what else had been a lie? I could have confronted her right then. I could have called her, demanded answers. But something stopped me. I realized I did not want to hear her excuses. I did not want to watch her try to spin this into something innocent. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. I called in sick to work the next day. Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. A date burned into my memory forever. I woke up early before Linda. She was cheerful that morning, humming while she got ready, packing her small suitcase. She kissed me goodbye at 7, told me she loved me, said she would call when she landed. I watched her drive away, waited 10 minutes, then got in my own car and followed. She did not go to the airport. She drove straight downtown, parked near the Pearl District. I stayed a few cars back, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding. Part of me still hoped I was wrong. Maybe she had a morning meeting before her flight. Maybe there was some explanation. But then she pulled up in front of the boutique hotel, the same one from the reservation. She got out of her car, pulling her small suitcase behind her. She looked around, not nervously, but with anticipation, like she was excited. And then I saw him. A man stepped out from the hotel entrance, tall, well-dressed in a dark suit. Even from a distance I recognized him. Trevor, her boss. The man she had mentioned countless times over the past year. The difficult but brilliant manager. The one who pushed the team hard but got results. The married man with 2 young daughters. I had met him once at a company holiday party last year. He had shaken my hand, complimented Linda's work, talked about his kids. His wife had been there too, pregnant with their 3rd child. Linda saw him and her whole face lit up. Not the polite smile you give a colleague, something else entirely. She walked quickly to him and he opened his arms. They hugged, not a professional hug. A long, intimate embrace. And then he kissed her, right there on the street, Not a peck on the cheek, a real kiss, the kind meant for lovers. She kissed him back, her hand going to his face. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only seconds. Then they walked into the hotel together, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. I sat in my car, unable to move. My entire body felt numb, cold, like I had been submerged in ice water. I could not process what I had just seen. This was Linda, my Linda, the woman who planted tomatoes in our backyard, the woman who left silly notes in my lunch, the woman I had married, promised my life to. And she had just walked into a hotel with another man. Not just any man. Her married boss, a man with children, a man whose wife was probably at home right now, with their kids trusting him the same way I had trusted Linda. I do not know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Time felt strange, elastic. My mind kept replaying the kiss, the way she smiled at him, the ease between them. This was not new. This was not a first meeting. They were comfortable with each other. Familiar? How long had this been going on? Months longer? All those late nights, all those texts, all those lies about work trips and meetings. How much of the past year had been a lie? The rage came in waves. I wanted to run into that hotel. I wanted to bang on every door until I found them. I wanted to scream, to break things, to make them feel a fraction of the pain tearing through my chest. But underneath the rage was something worse. Heartbreak. Complete, devastating heartbreak. The woman I loved did not exist. Or maybe she did once and I lost her somewhere along the way. Or maybe I never really knew her at all. But then, as I sat there staring at the hotel entrance, a strange calm settled over me. A clarity. I realized something important. I did not want to confront her. I did not want to give her the chance to explain, to cry, to beg for forgiveness. I did not want to hear how it just happened, how she never meant to hurt me, how she still loved me. Because none of that mattered. She had made her choice. She chose Trevor. She chose lies. She chose to blow up our marriage for hotel rooms and secret kisses. And I could choose too. I could choose to walk away. Completely. No drama. No confrontation, no closure, just gone. I started the car and drove home. My hands were steady now. My mind was clear. I knew exactly what I needed to do. When I got back to our house, I did not cry. I did not punch walls or throw things. I just started making phone calls. First, I called my friend David, a family law attorney. I explained the situation calmly, factually. He listened without interrupting, then gave me advice. Document everything. Keep the hotel reservation. Take photos if possible. File for divorce. Protect myself financially. He said he could recommend someone good and he would help me through the process. Next, I called my manager at work. I asked about the transfer opportunity I had heard about months ago. Austin, Texas. Our company had a growing office there, and they had been looking for senior engineers. Was the position still open? He said yes, actually they were still hiring. Could I start soon? I said I could start as soon as they needed me. He seemed surprised but pleased. He said he would make some calls, get back to me by end of day. Then I started packing. Just my things. Clothes, laptop, personal documents, photos from before I met Linda. I left everything we had bought together. The furniture, the kitchen stuff, the wedding gifts. I did not want any of it. It all felt contaminated now. Tainted by lies. I packed 3 large duffel bags with essentials. That was it. Everything important to me fit in 3 bags. Strange how that works. You think you have built a whole life, and it turns out the pieces that actually matter are pretty small. I spent the afternoon getting things in order. I transferred my half of our joint savings to a personal account David helped me set up. Legal, he assured me. I was protecting my assets, not stealing. I collected evidence, printed the hotel reservation, took photos of her text messages while her laptop was syncing to the cloud. Screenshots of late-night texts from unknown numbers. I sent everything to David. He said it was enough. More than enough. My manager called back at 4. The Austin position was mine if I wanted it. They could use me right away. Could I be there in 2 weeks? I said I could be there in 2 days. He laughed, thought I was joking. I was not. He said okay, he would make it happen. Just like that, I had a new job in a new city. A fresh start? Linda came home at 11 that night. She looked tired but satisfied. She kissed my cheek, said the flight had been delayed, apologized for not calling. She asked about my day. I said it was fine, just worked from home, nothing special. She went to take a shower. I listened to the water running and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. Like I was watching a stranger in my house. She came to bed around midnight, her hair still damp. She said goodnight, turned on her side away from me. Within minutes, she was asleep. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. I thought about waking her up, asking her why, asking her if Trevor was worth it, asking her when she stopped loving me, but what would be the point? Nothing she said could fix this. Nothing she said could make me want to stay. At 3 in the morning, I got up. Slowly, carefully. Linda did not stir. She was deeply asleep, probably exhausted from her day with Trevor. I got dressed in the dark, grabbed my 3 packed bags from the closet where I had hidden them. I walked through our house one last time. The kitchen where we cooked together. The living room where we watched movies. The backyard where her tomatoes were still growing. None of it felt like mine anymore. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. She would figure it out. I closed the front door quietly behind me, loaded my bags into my car, and started driving. Austin was roughly 1,800 miles away, about 30 hours of driving with stops. I had nothing but time. I drove through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. By the time the sun came up, I was already in Northern California. My phone started buzzing around 9 in the morning. Linda? I did not answer. It kept buzzing. Calls, texts, voicemails. I pulled over at a rest stop, turned off my old phone, and tossed it in a trash can. I had already bought a burner phone the day before. New number? No one had it except David and my new job. The messages kept coming to my email, which was linked to my laptop. I did not read them, just moved them to a folder. Evidence, David had said. Keep everything. So I did. By the end of that first day, Linda had called 47 times, left 89 text messages. They started panicked. Where are you? Are you okay? Did something happen? Then they turned angry. You cannot just disappear like this. This is crazy. Call me back right now. Then desperate, please Mark, I am so sorry. Whatever I did, we can fix this. Please just talk to me. I did not respond to any of it. I kept driving. Texas stretched out endlessly in front of me. Flat highways, big sky. I felt like I was driving toward nothing and away from everything at the same time. When I finally reached Austin, I was exhausted. I had been driving for nearly 30 hours with only short breaks. I found a cheap motel, collapsed on the bed, and slept for 14 hours straight. The next week was a blur. I found a small apartment near the office. Nothing fancy. 1-bedroom basic furniture, but it was mine. Clean slate. I started my new job, threw myself into it. The work was challenging, complex projects that required my full attention. Good. I needed the distraction. My co-workers were friendly, welcoming. No one knew anything about my past. I was just Mark, the new senior engineer from Portland. I did not correct them about the Portland part. I did not talk about Linda. I did not talk about anything personal. Linda kept trying to reach me. She contacted my parents. They called worried. I told them I was fine, just needed space. Please do not tell her where I am. They were confused but respected my wishes. She reached out to David, my brother. He told her the same thing. I need space. Leave me alone. She tried my old co-workers. Most of them did not know where I had gone. The ones who did kept quiet. 3 weeks after I left, David sent me divorce papers. Linda had been served. He said she broke down when the process server came to the house. Cried, begged for my contact information. The server, of course, could not give it to her. A week later, the papers came back signed. She had also included a long handwritten letter. David scanned it and sent it to me, asked if I wanted to read it. I said no. He kept it on file with everything else. The divorce was finalized in 3 months, fastest I had ever heard of, David said. Linda did not contest anything, did not ask for alimony, did not fight over assets. She just signed everything and sent it back. Like she knew she had no leg to stand on. David said the letter she sent with the final papers was even longer than the first. I still did not read it. What was the point? Nothing she wrote could change what happened. Nothing she said could make me trust her again. I focused on building my new life. Austin suited me. The tech scene was thriving, the weather was warm, and no one knew me. I could be anyone I wanted. I joined a running club, started going to group fitness classes at a gym near my apartment. Made casual friends. People who knew me as Mark the software engineer who liked hiking and terrible action movies. Not Mark the guy whose wife cheated on him, just Mark. 5 months after I arrived in Austin, I got promoted. Senior engineer to lead engineer. More responsibility, better pay. I moved to a nicer apartment with a balcony overlooking the city. I bought actual furniture instead of the cheap stuff from my first place. Hung some artwork. Got a plant even though I had no idea how to keep it alive. It felt good. Like I was building something real again. Something that was mine. I started dating casually. Nothing serious. Just coffee dates, dinners, getting to know people. It felt strange at first. Disloyal, even though I had no one to be loyal to anymore. But slowly, it started to feel normal. I met a woman named Sarah through a dating app. She was an elementary school teacher, loved hiking and reading and terrible puns. We started seeing each other regularly. She knew I had been married before, that it ended badly. She did not push for details, just accepted that it was part of my past and moved forward. I appreciated that more than she knew. By the time a year had passed, I felt like a different person. Stronger. More sure of myself. I had learned to trust my instincts again. To not ignore red flags. To value honesty above everything. I was not bitter. I did not spend my days thinking about Linda and what she did. Mostly, I just did not think about her at all. She was a chapter in my life that was closed. Finished. I had moved on. And then, on a Saturday night in September, exactly 1 year after I left, my doorbell rang. I had just gotten home from dinner with Sarah. We had gone to this little Italian place downtown, laughed over too much wine, made plans for a hiking trip the next weekend. I was in a good mood, content. I opened the door, expecting a delivery I had forgotten about, or maybe a neighbor. Instead, Linda stood there. I almost did not recognize her. She looked so different. Thinner, much thinner than I remembered. Her hair was longer but unkempt, like she had not bothered to style it in months. Dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and an old sweater, nothing like the put-together woman I had known. She looked broken. Her eyes filled with tears the second she saw me. "Mark," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, I have been looking for you for months. I finally found your address through your old co-worker Jessica. She felt bad for me and told me where you were. Please just let me explain." I stood there looking at her, waiting to feel something, anger, sadness, betrayal. But there was nothing, just a strange detachment. Like I was looking at a character in a movie, not someone who used to share my bed. She was a stranger, someone from a life I did not live anymore. She kept talking, words tumbling out between sobs. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Trevor left me after his wife found out. She was 8 months pregnant when she discovered the affair. She filed for divorce immediately. He lost everything, his family, his reputation. And he blamed me. Said I was too needy, too emotional. He ended things 2 months after you left. Then the company fired me. Conflict of interest, they said. Violation of ethics policy. I lost my job. I lost my apartment because I could not afford rent. I moved back in with my parents. I lost everything, Mark. And worst of all, I lost you. She stepped closer, reaching out like she was going to touch my arm. I did not move. "Please," she said. "I know I do not deserve forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know how sorry I am. I need you to know that I regret it every single day. I would do anything to take it back. Anything to have you back. Please just talk to me. I looked at her for a long moment. Really looked at her. Saw the desperation in her eyes. The hope that maybe, just maybe, I would let her in. That I would listen. That I would give her the closure she needed. And I realized something. I did not owe her that. I did not owe her anything. She made her choices. She destroyed what we had. And I had built something new, something better, something that did not include her. I spoke for the first time, my voice calm and even. Wrong address. She blinked, confused. What wrong address? I repeated. You are at the wrong address? The person you are looking for does not live here anymore. Mark, please, she started. I stepped back and closed the door. Gently, no slamming, no anger, just a quiet, definitive click. I heard her on the other side crying, saying my name, begging. I walked away from the door back into my apartment. I did not look through the peephole. I did not open it again. After a few minutes, I heard her footsteps retreating down the hall. Then silence. I sat on my couch, let out a long breath. It was over. Really, truly over. Not when I left, not when the divorce was finalized, but now, in that moment, when I closed the door on her and everything she represented, I felt lighter, free. The days after Linda showed up were strange. I kept expecting to feel something. Regret maybe. Doubt about whether I had done the right thing. But nothing came. Just peace. Sarah asked if I was okay. She had been in the apartment when Linda knocked, had heard everything from the bedroom. I told her I was fine. Better than fine. She hugged me, said she was proud of me. I realized I was proud of me too. I did not hear from Linda again. No more calls, no more letters. I think she finally understood that I meant what I said. The person she was looking for, the Mark who loved her and trusted her and built a life with her, really did not exist anymore. That Mark died in a car outside a hotel in Portland. The Mark who opened the door in Austin was someone else entirely. Someone who had learned hard lessons about trust and self-respect. Someone who knew that loving yourself enough to walk away is not weakness. It is strength. My relationship with Sarah continued to grow. We took things slow, but we were building something good. Something based on honesty and communication. She never asked me to talk about Linda unless I wanted to. She just showed up consistently, honestly. She did not play games, did not lie. Did not make me wonder where she was or who she was with, and that meant everything. Work continued to go well. I took on bigger projects, mentored junior engineers, became a valued part of the team. I made real friends, people I could call on a bad day, people who invited me to barbecues and game nights, people who knew me as I was now, not as I used to be. Austin started to feel like home, not just a place I ran to, but a place I chose. A place I belonged. I thought a lot about the choice I made that September morning, to leave without a word, to ghost her completely. Some people might say it was cruel, that she deserved a chance to explain, to apologize, to try to make things right, but I do not agree. She made her choices long before I made mine. Every time she texted Trevor late at night, every time she lied about where she was, every time she kissed him and came home to me like nothing happened. Those were her choices, and I made mine. To value myself enough to leave. To refuse to be someone's backup plan. To understand that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, and that is okay. Forgiveness is complicated. People act like it is always necessary for healing. Like you cannot move on unless you forgive. But I learned that is not true. I did not forgive Linda. I probably never will. But I also do not hate her. I do not spend my energy being angry or bitter. I simply let her go. Released her from my life and my thoughts. And in doing that, I found freedom. Real freedom. Not the kind that comes from closure or apologies or explanations. The kind that comes from deciding that you deserve better and then building a life that reflects that. I talk to my parents regularly now. They understand better what happened, why I left the way I did. They have met Sarah, like her a lot. My brother David comes to visit sometimes. We go to football games, drink beer, talk about everything and nothing. He tells me I seem happier than I have been in years. I believe him. I feel it. Sometimes late at night when I cannot sleep, I think about that moment on the doorstep. Linda standing there broken and desperate. Me closing the door. I wonder if I should have said more. Told her exactly why I left. Made sure she understood the depth of what she had done. But then I realize it does not matter. She knows. And even if she does not, it is not my job to teach her. My job is to live my life, to be happy, to build something real with someone who deserves my trust. The best revenge is not revenge at all. It is not making someone pay for what they did. It is not even making them understand how much they hurt you. The best revenge is simply living well, thriving, becoming the best version of yourself, showing that you did not need them to be happy, that their betrayal, as painful as it was, did not break you. It just redirected you towards something better. I sit on my balcony some evenings watching the Austin sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Sarah beside me talking about her students or some book she is reading. My coffee in hand. My life simple and honest and mine. And I realized that walking away was not running. It was choosing myself. It was understanding that I deserved someone who would choose me every single day, not just when it was convenient. It was knowing that silence can be more powerful than any confrontation. That sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. Linda made her choice when she walked into that hotel. I made mine when I walked out of our house. And I have never regretted it, not for a single moment. Because on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that heartbreak, I found myself again. Stronger, clearer, free. So if you are out there struggling with betrayal or heartbreak, or wondering if you should give someone another chance, ask yourself this. Are you staying because you truly believe things will change? Or are you staying because you are afraid of starting over? Because starting over is terrifying, I know, but it is also liberating. It is also beautiful. It is also proof that you are stronger than you think. You do not owe anyone your forgiveness. You do not owe anyone closure. You do not owe anyone a chance to explain themselves if you already know the truth. What you owe is to yourself. Respect, love, the courage to walk away from anything that diminishes you. The wisdom to know that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is close the door and never look back. That is what I learned. That is what I want to share. Life is too short to spend it with people who do not value you. Too precious to waste on relationships built on lies. You deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve someone who chooses you every single day without hesitation. And if you do not have that, you deserve the strength to walk away and find it elsewhere. Or find it in yourself. I found it in myself first. In the quiet of my new apartment, in the rhythm of my new routine, in the peace of knowing I had done the right thing. And then I found it in Sarah, in her kindness, her honesty, her consistency. But I could only recognize it in her because I had learned to recognize it in myself. That is the gift that pain gave me. The clarity to know what I deserve and the strength to accept nothing less. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to walk away from someone you loved? How did you find the strength to do it? What helped you move forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel because I share stories like this regularly. Real experiences about life, love, loss, and everything in between. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find the courage to choose yourself, whatever that looks like for you. You deserve it. Take care of yourself out there.